Strong communities don't happen by chance. They're built. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Mary Okada led Guam Community College, transforming it into a powerhouse for workforce development. She expanded the opportunities for students, strengthened job training, and helped build the workforce Guam depends on. She modernized the GCC campus to ensure students gain the skills to meet the demands of today and the future. In 2014, President Barack Obama appointed her to the White House Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, where she worked to expand educational opportunities and strengthen access to federal programs for communities across our region. When it comes to preparing people for real careers, Mary Okada delivers real results. She understands that a stronger workforce means stronger families and a stronger Guam. With Frank Blas Jr.'s experience in public safety and government and Dr. Mary Okada's proven leadership in education and workforce development, the future looks bright for our island. This is the team ready to move Guam forward. Vote Frank Blas Jr. for governor and Dr. Mary Okada for lieutenant governor.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
My breakfast this morning actually was Wendy's. It's their new jalapeno and cheese biscuit. It was with sausage. It's delicious. I'm going to try it with bacon next time. Good morning. My name is Troy Torres. It's 8:39 a.m. on Wednesday, June 24, 2026. I should have let you know that I was going to start this show 30 minutes late, though I'm 9 minutes past my 30 minutes late, because we're going to simulcast the oversight hearing that Senator Vince Borja will be holding at 9 a.m. of the Guam Department of Education and the Guam Education Board. And joining us right now on the phone is a member of the Guam Education Board, Dr. McNinch, who yesterday submitted some written points to Senator Borja as ahead of the oversight hearing. Good morning, Dr. McNinch.
Hey, half a day, Troy, half a day, Guam. You know, I love Wendy's French toast. That's my favorite.
I haven't tried that yet. They have French toast. I didn't realize that.
Yes, absolutely. It's my favorite. Me and my wife will get like the big one and then share it.
Okay, I'm gonna try that. Normally I go to IHOP for the French toast. I'm gonna try it at Wendy's. I didn't know that. All right. Okay. I know that you only have 5 minutes before you have to go into the public hearing room, right?
Sure.
Oh, so can you talk to us about what it is that you sent to Senator Borja yesterday?
Sure. So Senator Borja sent us 9 points that he was interested in. And so as an individual board member, I just sent in some of my views of those points just to give a little structure. And, you know, it's better to foreshadow your views with the senators to let them know some of your directions and positions beforehand. It's simply more fair to them. And also just I had some things I wanted to say that are sometimes, because you're limited on time during testimony, you can't say everything. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned things that I thought were important.
What's the most important thing that you wanted to bring up to Senator Borja and to the committee?
I simply think that Dr. Wampat is leading a very complex and very large organization that has a whole bunch of stakeholders, and it's a big job. And it's going to take a little bit of time to align some of these things. But my big thing is opening the schools on time, working with our stakeholders, kind of clarifying the issue about the school closings. I have to tell you, in my view, those were purely studies. Those were things looking at, and sometimes when you hear things or hear parts of things, it's hard to see the context. There was no decision before the board. There was no proposal before the board to close anything. These were simply discussions at that time. And so I think that the public should hear that and know that.
So when if pressed by senators, right? And I think this is not something that just senators share concern about. Also, many people in the public, and especially GDOE stakeholders who I've talked to off the record, because they, for them, according to them, it's fear of retaliation, right?
Sure.
Communication would be a big deal, or an improvement in communication and in open communication and in transparency and accessibility within GDOE. How would you address that concern?
Well, I'll tell you, I think, as you know, we've mentioned this before on the air. I've made literally hundreds of complaints at the university over the years, but I have always backstopped those complaints with the appropriate protection policies that I invoke with those complaints. That is, we have whistleblower protections, we have retaliation protections. Our employees need to know and understand how to use those tools. That's one part of the puzzle, is helping people to understand what their rights are and how their rights are protected. And if they are afraid, how can we address those fears? It could be that they don't know some of these things, and we can help to show them. Nobody's going to get, in my universe, when people make good complaints, that is, complaints that are relevant and appropriate to the process of government, they're going to be heard and they're going to be processed, and nobody's going to retaliate. I have to say, we've mentioned this before. When you were a young student, you and Mike St. Nicholas wrote a complaint letter to the university, and they retaliated against you.
Yes.
That kind of thing should never happen. That should never happen.
But unfortunately, it does all the time. Unfortunately, it didn't stop with Mike St. Nicholas and me. I mean, you were retaliated against. You were just trying to uncover a sex scandal over at the university that was criminally affecting students, and you were trying to uncover all kinds of stuff, and you were retaliated against. And at every agency, right, or at almost every agency, this has been an issue, and it's a louder issue as the days and weeks go by at GDOE in the new WANPAD administration.
So Guam has a very good whistleblower law, and interestingly enough, the chair of our education board, Dr. Judy Guthertz, greatly expanded that whistleblower law to include nearly every employee or every interested person back in the day when she was a senator. And so I think that what we need to do is start enforcing the retaliation provisions, if that's what it takes, or helping our employees to know how and where they can make complaints, how the complaints will be heard. What is the process for hearing complaints? Sometimes people should not feel like they're getting the Puzzle Palace voodoo treatment when they make a complaint. There should be timelines. There should be formal structures and correspondence. So we can do better on that across the government in general. We can do better on that.
Two things.
And I think
two things.
Yeah.
One is I think many employees were quite relieved when Dr. Guthertz, for lack of a better term, put her foot down on the school closures issue and sent a pretty direct email to the superintendent and to the other board members about taking up the issue at the board, stopping. And yeah, I think there was a sigh of relief, right, when Dr. Guthertz did that as the chair of the board. And the second thing is regarding this retaliation issue. The last time we talked, I think you came up with the idea of some type of a course or a training for GDOE employees to understand what the process is for grieving, complaining, invoking whistleblower protection, etc. Is that something we'll talk about today?
Yeah, just very briefly, not only should it be training, it should be on a website. A person should be able to almost anonymously access this information, because if people are afraid of being retaliated against, they're going to be afraid of showing up in person at a meeting somewhere to get the training for it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So we have to make it accessible. Troy, I do apologize. I've got to go into this meeting.
No, that's fine. We'll be watching come the, as long as the legislature's YouTube holds up, right, we'll be watching at 9 a.m.
One little request, though, I'd like to ask you about. Let's always keep the children first in line on everything.
Yes. Hopefully that's how the senators treat it.
Very good. Hey, have a great day,
You
man.
too, Doc. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye. That's Dr. Ron McNinch, a member of the Guam Education Board, talking to us about some ideas he has, solutions to problems that might be brought up by the senators at the oversight hearing this morning. Should be an interesting oversight hearing because for the past couple of months, we have been hearing from stakeholders within the Guam Department of Education about what's going on over there, and that's because we have not been hearing from management at GDOE. And when we have heard from management, the information coming out of management has been inconsistent. Dr. McNinch says essentially, give her some time, maybe the benefit of the doubt, but in the meantime, here are ways that we can help to resolve or assuage people's concerns about retaliation over at GDOE. So anyway, we're going to come back to the whole education thing, but on the other side of the commercial break, I want to at least briefly talk about one of the documents that was disclosed to me by GVB when I asked for, every policy change that had been made since Jane Doe alleged that she informed legal counsel, basically broke her silence about the alleged sex crimes back in 2024. And one of the documents that was disclosed was a reissuance of a sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual violence in the workplace policy issued by Regine Lee and George Chu, the chairman of the board over at GVB. It looks like an undated reissuance, but it comes before May of 2025. We'll get into that and what GVB might have done or might not have done on the other side of this commercial break. Stick with us.
As your senator, building a modern transportation system will be one of my priorities because investing in transportation is investing in our people. For many working families, transportation isn't just about getting from one place to another. It's about opportunity. It's about keeping a job, getting an education, and building a better future. A strong economy depends on a strong middle class, and a strong middle class depends on having the tools people need to succeed. That's why transportation matters. When workers can get to work reliably, business can grow. When businesses grow, jobs are created. And when jobs are created, families thrive. Imagine a Guam where opportunity is within reach for everyone. I'm Donna Munikanata, and I approve this message.
Good morning and welcome back. It is 8:51 a.m. on Wednesday, June 24, 2026. My name is Troy Torres, and this is the morning news analysis. It's the Wednesday news analysis. In a little bit, I didn't prepare it, but in a little bit, we will be going over to the legislature's YouTube site to play for you the live showing of the legislature's public hearing or oversight hearing. Guam Legislature Media Live. The legislature's upcoming oversight hearing, 9 a.m. oversight hearing on Guam Department of Education and the Guam Education Board. But while we're waiting for that to happen, while I'm preparing in the middle because I was unprepared and irresponsible today, stand by. I wanted to talk about this whole GVB thing, but I wanted to tell you a little story first. So last night I didn't have a live show. And it was supposed to have been the Troy Torres show, but I couldn't because by the time I got home, it was about 8:15 or something like that. And I was like, no, it was too late to have a show and I was tired and I wanted to go to sleep. And it was the reason I was late, or the reason I came home that late. Normally I go to mass at 6 in Jigo, but last night I went to mass in Talafofo, and I actually have not been to San Miguel Church uh, since my baccalaureate mass in 1998. So when I walked into the church, I was like, "Oh, this looks different." It's a beautiful church, by the way. It's very ornate. It's got these nice chandeliers and everything. Well, anyway, and it's very like it's very comfortable, like you very homely. But I went to the Talafofo parish because it was the finactful for Sister Regina Paulino, and it was I think it was the second or the third day of the rosary for Sister Vincent Marie Balahaja. Both school sisters in Notre Dame, both passed away recently at their retirement home in, I think it's Minnesota or Wisconsin. Anyway, Sister Regina was my principal over at Notre Dame. But the story goes, it was the drive there, right? And normally I'm just in Jigo, Dededo, sometimes Tamuning, rarely Hagatnya. Like if I am in Aganya, there's something important or whatever, right? But that's just too far for me, like because so my life basically revolves around the northern half of the island. I used to live in the south, and if you don't know my story, 8 years ago, 8 years ago, and for almost all of my drug life, almost all of my adult life, except for breaks here and there, I was a heavy drug user. Methamphetamine, ecstasy was for years and years. Yeah, that was basically it. Like there are other things, whatever, right? But anyway, I really ruined my life that way. And that was a time when I was living in the south or the central area of the island. And so the central and the southern areas of the island were like my playground, so to speak, to do all my bad stuff. And I also graduated from Notre Dame High School in Talafofo. That was before my drug use. And so I driving through that area of the South always brings mixed emotions and memories and issues to mind. Like there was a time when I was young. There was a time when I was what do you call it? Filled with so much vanity and hatred and pride and arrogance. You know, these demons that I still struggle with or whatever. But I was working in the governor's office. I had a good paying job. I was paying a mortgage in Baza Gardens. I got a house. I was young. All these different things that were just not good for me, right? And so I was driving, and all of these different emotions and memories were flooding back when I'm making that roundabout in Jotnya, the one that goes down the hill. And then I went through, instead of going through Ipan, I went through Baza Gardens. I went through Windward Hills, and just a lot, right? And I had to pray because I wasn't getting triggered to use drugs, but I don't know how to explain this. There was a darkness that filled my mind, and I didn't want to be in these places. And as normally when I'm driving to church, I feel good, right? Like I'm gonna kneel before the altar of the Lord. The presence of the Lord is there. I'm excited, right? But I wasn't. I was maybe ambivalent as I was parking and walking into the church. And I open the doors and I see everything so beautiful, and everyone there is so beautiful. And it was just such a beautiful thing. Thing is the wrong word. It was such a beautiful life. And mass happened. The Archbishop actually presided. I'm not sure why the Archbishop presided. He was maybe it was because it was the finactful for Sister Regina. And then I remembered Sister Regina. I remembered my time at Notre Dame High School. I remembered Sister Eucarita and Pilar Williams and Marisha Cruz and Mrs. Ganchero and Mrs. Joe um, and I started to feel better. And then Mass ended, and I went to say hi to the School Sisters of Notre Dame. And my very first principal, Sister Mary Wan, she was there, and she was so excited to see me. I was very excited to see her. Sister Francine was there. There's another nun who I don't remember, but she was never a part of ND when I was there. And though this one nun who I'm going to talk about next, or I'm going to mention next, was never my teacher or my principal at Notre Dame at the time. I don't remember. I think she was the head of like all of the religious sisters at the time, or she might have been the superintendent of Catholic schools at the time. Was Sister Jean Ann Chrysostoma. She's the current president of SSND. Oh, I'm sorry, of Notre Dame High School. And she was there, and I was excited to see her. And then everyone who was from Notre Dame, we all got to take this picture together. And there were only two of us guys. I don't know who the other guy was. He must be like so much younger than me, because I was part of the first co-ed graduating class. So if you are a male ND, if you are an alumnus of ND, and I don't know who you are, it's very likely you're much younger than me. It's because I didn't go to school with you. But I felt good. And all of that yuckiness, that drive-through yuckiness that was inside of me just dissipated. And the moral of the story, I guess, is twofold. One is, go to Mass. It will never fail you. And the second is, the School Sisters of Notre Dame will always put a smile on your face. Anyway, I know that has nothing to do with the news, and that was extremely personal, but I wanted to share it, and I wanted to share it since last night, but I was just tired. Anyway, so let's move on with our subject. A few days ago, I asked Guam Visitors Bureau to send me all of their policies that they've instituted since 2024. It's essentially the time after Jane Doe said in her June 1, 2026 federal complaint that she broke her silence, and on August 22, 2024, she informed GVB legal counsel, did not name legal counsel, but said GVB legal counsel in her complaint, that there were these sex crimes perpetrated against her, allegedly by Carl Gutierrez, who at the time was the GVB president, and covered up by, she alleged the sex crimes at the time, and then she alleged in 2026 that that entire time GVB covered it up, or the government covered it up. She said that on August 22, legal counsel discouraged her from reporting it, and told her that if she reported it to the board would sweep it under the rug. Eventually, on November 14, 2024, she did submit a written complaint to the board chairman, George Chu. That's according to her report. On November 15, Carl Gutierrez resigned as the president and CEO. This is while he was traveling with Governor Lulian Guerrero in Japan. John Jr. Calvo, who was also traveling, said that he was not aware at the time that that had happened. He never denied that the governor didn't know, though. Anyway, so August 22 2024 is an important date because it establishes when GVB legal counsel knew. At least that's the allegation by Jane Doe. And so it is de facto that GVB management and leadership knew since, at the very least, August 22, 2024. The GVB head allegedly knew about these things since 2022, because if Jane Doe's allegations are correct, the head of GVB was the person perpetrating the alleged crimes, right? Since October of 2022. Anyway, I asked for all of the policies that had been instituted since that date, August 22, 2024. Because part of Jane Doe's allegation is that GVB absolutely failed to protect her. According to Jane Doe, in her complaint, she's seeking redress under 42 USC subsection 1983 for violations of the 14th Amendment attributable to defendants' official policies, customs, and practices, including the actions of a final policymaker, the absence of effective human resources oversight, the failure to train, supervise, discipline, or protect employees, and the tolerance, ratification, and concealment of misconduct following credible findings, which were the moving force behind the deprivation of plaintiffs' rights. This complaint also asserts Guam's statutory and common law claims, including Guam's public policy prohibiting sexual harassment, sexual assault, hostile work environments, retaliation, negligent supervision, negligent training, and negligent hiring and retention. On April 21, 2025, plaintiff received defendant is GVB, first written update summarizing findings and noting possible policy violations without mention of discipline or systemic corrective action. This is in reference to an investigation, a third-party investigation that GVB launched in, I believe it was January of 2025, which was about 2 months after Carl Gutierrez's resignation. Let's see, August, September, October, November, December, about 5 months after Jane Doe first made a complaint to GVB leadership. On May 13, 2025, the new agency president, Regine Biscoli, suggested plaintiff be reassigned, but no formal plan was provided. At the relevant times, according to the complaint, defendant lacked certified human resources personnel, failed to conduct required annual harassment prevention training, and failed to implement effective EEO reporting consistent with policy. Following plaintiff's protected activity, she experienced exclusion from meetings, increased scrutiny and isolation, denial of EEO support, chastisement by the board chairman for accessing EEOC protocols, and pressure from the new president to waive claims and transfer into a newly created lower-ranked position. Defendant did not provide plaintiff with updates or support personnel during sensitive meetings, failed to timely communicate investigative outcomes, and suggested reassignment without a formal plan, contributing to a continuing hostile work environment. Plaintiff experienced emotional distress, anxiety, and PTSD symptoms. Defendant's misconduct constituted a continuing course of conduct that rendered plaintiff's working conditions intolerable and directly caused her damages. Now, maybe this is not something that smaller companies might do, right? Because you just have a few employees, and the probability of situations like this coming up are far less than in a larger company. So in larger companies, right, like Guam Visitors Bureau, you have a human resources division, and an HR division is extremely important because the likelihood that something like this would happen increases substantially when you have far more employees working, right? And you have an HR department for different reasons. It's not just for hiring. It's not just to schedule the interviews and to do the interview questions, but it is to inform employees and management of policies, laws, rights, protections. It's to enforce those. It is to advise management or to regulate management's activities when management is doing something that's outside of policy, outside of the law, illegal. What I wonder here, and we're not getting much transparency from GVB, right? What we know from Jane Doe's complaint is that Jane Doe says that she told legal counsel, that's part of leadership, right? Made a written complaint to George Chu, who is the chairman of the board, right? We know that at the very least in it's either August or October of 2025, the entire board knew, because the entire board discussed the matter in executive session, and GVB refuses to disclose that, even though it's past 6 months. And that Regine Biscoli knew as the new president and CEO. Okay. We know that leadership and management at the highest levels of GVB knew about this since going back to August 22, 2024. Whether any other employee at GVB knew about this or suspected this, let's set that aside for a second, because that would be pure speculation, we don't, and also, anyway, I won't say that doesn't matter, but what I'm wondering is if management and the board stupidly hid this issue and did not engage human resources over at GVB, because GVB has a human resources division. And I'm wondering that because the evidence in this case is showing that the most common best practices for how to handle something like this were not followed by GVB. And this is what really puts the government of Guam on the hook, right, for this $61.5 million. On top of the cover-up, the alleged cover-up, on top of the alleged sex crimes, on top of, these people at the highest levels of GVB and even possibly Adelup knowing about these alleged crimes, the institution owed a duty to Jane Doe and to all of its employees to take certain actions. And one of the things that GVB did, according to the documents that they disclosed to us, was they reissued the existing sexual violence in the workplace policy that GVB has. And it's all standard stuff, right? It's all about, you report whatever you see, you keep things confidential, you, there are policies against retaliation over a person who has made a complaint, et cetera, et cetera. All the standard stuff is there, right, in that policy. But it isn't enough to just reissue a policy in a situation where on August 22, 2024, Jane Doe breaks her silence and she says, these crimes were committed against me in the workplace. There were certain things that certain steps that needed to happen. And this goes with, these are things that are enumerated in guidance from federal EEOC, from the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Number one, ensuring the immediate safety of the person and medical care. The very first point there is to remove Jane Doe from immediate danger, ensure the survivor is in a safe space, completely separated from the alleged perpetrator. According to Jane Doe, not only did this not happen, but she continued to be supervised by this person to the point where she was retaliated against, allegedly, by this person and by others under this person. The second thing is to be provided with medical support offered to help the employee access immediate medical evaluation or emergency care if needed. Did GVB attempt even to set up an appointment for Jane Doe with the Healing Hearts Crisis Center, which is a standard step that you take in a situation like this? Offer resources, provide immediate contact details for professional mental health services, an employee assistance program, or external hotlines like the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Did GVB attempt whatsoever to connect Jane Doe with any type of counseling service? That's number one, providing for Jane Doe's. Hold on, let me just check if the legislature is in session yet. Stand by. And then if they are, we can, oh, they are, sorry. Okay, we're going to go over to the Guam legislature for their oversight hearing. And then we will continue this conversation about GVB tonight. Stand by.
And the school children of Guam. Now, we are here today to answer many questions, and Senator Borja was kind enough to share some of the areas that he would like us to address today. We are prepared to do that. Our management team, led by our superintendent, will provide all the information you need regarding the operational aspects of the Guam Department of Education. At the same time, on behalf of the board, we are also here to assist in any way we can, and perhaps to familiarize you a little bit about how the board operates, how the board makes decisions, and what our primary areas of interest are at this time. We are seeing changes introduced into the department to assure more accountability, not just in terms of how funds are used, but in terms of how our employees meet their commitments to the organization and to the taxpayers. Some of these changes, as will be explained by our superintendent, may or may not be welcomed by employees, because they do require, for example, processing transactions within a certain period of time, because just like you, we want to make sure that the stakeholders that deal with the Department of Education don't have to get paid for their services. We want to make sure that our classrooms have the supplies and materials they need when they need them. We want to make sure we're getting value for the money that is spent on behalf of the Guam Department of Education. All that requires, in some cases, is a new approach to processing paperwork or electronic materials in order to respond in a timely manner. All of that requires accountability from employees at all levels of the department, whether line employees, supervisors, managers, deputy administrators, principals, deputy principals, all the way through the organization. None of these changes or improvements are intended to hurt anyone. They're dedicated to the same goals that many of you have expressed, not just recently, but for many years, that we have to do better at the Guam Department of Education. I can assure you that every single board member on the board has the same goal. We each are very independent in our thinking. We come to decisions during board meetings, not before board meetings, but during board meetings. And we act on those things we're responsible for when it's brought to the board and is part of our agenda. One thing I would like to clarify, if I may. Yes, there was a lot of discussion in the community and concerns regarding the status of schools and potential school closures. This process did not start with Dr. Juan Pat. This is something that began earlier under our former superintendent, because we started experiencing low enrollment previously. It didn't just happen now. And the department actually worked very hard at that time to come up with an initial plan, if needed, to deal with the schools. And this legislature did respond, I think, quite positively, in the sense that they established a legal mechanism to help the Department of Education deal with the issue of maybe having schools that we may not need at this particular time, what we could and could not do with them. You establish a group by law that's supposed to look at these matters and provide some assistance to the department. We do not want to close schools. The school board believes, and we've discussed it in our meetings, that we did close 2 schools, just earlier this year, and we feel that we really want to keep, as a board, our community schools with the communities they're in. And so we have made our position known. The superintendent came up with the same conclusion when she presented her findings and some of the data that she has collected on enrollments, on costs, and on personnel in terms of how do we handle this when we have under-enrollment, we have these infrastructure costs that we must meet, we have the salary costs, we have other things. And she provided her perspective. Having the data is very important, and I would say to you, I will bring this up at this point, I think we want to be supportive of our village schools. No one on the board wants to close a school because of the investment of parents, PTAs, the mayors, the students, the stakeholders of those schools. And I'll give you one example, and it stood out very straight to me and clearly to me when I thought about it. We received news about 3 weeks ago that one of our southern schools received 6-year accreditation renewal. 6 years is the maximum for the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. All of our schools are accredited, as you know. But the Inarahan School did a tremendous job preparing for their accreditation visiting team from the U.S. mainland. And that reinforced my belief that here you have a village school, doesn't matter if they have 10 students or 1,000 students, that was recognized nationally by one of the federally recognized accrediting bodies for meeting all the national standards for a school of that size, even with the smaller enrollment. And I said, we cannot allow a school like that to stop what they're doing. What they're doing, children are learning, and it's recognized by national accreditors. That, to me, was very important, and of course our colleagues on the board also recognize that. So the idea of closure of schools is not an option for us at this time. And frankly, I don't think it needs to be an option later if we're smart about it and we can develop partnerships and a joint usage of some of the space to accommodate community needs that could help the school maintain the facility even with lower enrollment. Yes, there's a financial consideration. And this legislature and our people want the Department of Education to be prudent in how it spends money. There's no way to ignore the fact that this trend of lower enrollment is going to occur and has occurred, not just in the South, but in other parts of the island. And I would suggest to you also that in building new schools, we need to take that into consideration. What will the enrollment be? I'm sure Dr. Wampat and her team are looking at the projected enrollment for our newest school, which we hope to see built soon, Simon Sanchez. Will it be as large an enrollment as it was 12 years ago, 5 years ago, this year? that will affect the cost of the school and looking at how big the school should be. And it might allow us to put in better amenities if we have an idea of exactly what the enrollment would be projected to be. If you look at the statistics on Guam, the birth rate is declining. Families are having less children. That's contributing to the smaller enrollments in our school. Of course, people have left the island also. And that trend started, during the pandemic. But nevertheless, the board has spoken. We were very clear. Dr. Juan Pat supported our position, and we're moving forward. We're still going to do research to be responsible and to have a better idea of what we can do to maximize our funds based on the current data that we must collect in order to make our projections. It's very similar to you making your projections on the total revenue of the government of Guam for a fiscal year. We have to make our projections on enrollments, not just for 1 year, but for a future period of time, and make decisions on where the money should go in terms of the best use for our students and the school system. So, Senators, there's no difference in opinion in terms of the needs for improvement. We're committed to that. We're committing to work with all of our stakeholders. But our role is to act and take a position on matters that are brought to us when they're brought to us, when we have a vote. As you know, there are certain restrictions on board members. You cannot do certain things outside of a meeting. And at the last meeting we had, we made it very clear what our position was. So today, I'm here on behalf of the board to let you know we want to cooperate with the legislature and all of our elected officials. We really don't have any differences in terms of what our mutual goals are. How we get there may be a little different, but I'm very confident in the leadership of the Guam Department of Education. I'm very supportive, and the board is supportive of our employees. Our employees are doing wonderful things, not just in academics, but in introducing changes to improve the organization. And we're proud of our organization. And our commitment is to the people of Guam and to the children of Guam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Guthridge. Before we proceed, I want to recognize my colleague who joined us, Senator Jesse Loan. Thank you.
Good morning. Buenos and Hafaday. Senator Borja, Senator Gombat-Tautau, Senator San Agustin, Senator Taitagui, Senator Barnett, and Senator Lujan. There's a long list of what you've asked us to report to you, so I'm going to go right into it. And the individuals that I brought with me to assist in providing any information also are here with me. My deputy for finance is Franklin Leon Guerrero. For curriculum and instruction is Dr. Risa. For educational services and community learning is Jackie Kittigwa. And our chief auditor at the Internal Auditor's Office. The very first thing you asked for was to actually discuss about the right sizing through school consolidation. So the GDOE Committee on Maximizing District Resources, and their acronym was CMDR, Task Force, has met with key management and presented the ongoing effort to assess district-wide enrollment trends, facility utilization, staffing patterns, and operational efficiencies to support data-driven recommendations for right sizing in April of 2026. The task force was established by the former superintendent, Dr. Swanson, and spearheaded by Deputy Superintendent Joseph Sanchez in 2024 to evaluate opportunities for right-sizing schools to ensure the efficient use of district resources and facilities. The primary objectives of the initiatives were 1, maximize full utilization of existing school facilities. 2, address declining student enrollment by optimizing class sizes and school capacity. 3, improve the allocation of human resources in response to teacher and staff vacancies. 4, reduce operational costs, including utilities and contractual services. 5, minimize the financial burden associated with maintaining underutilized facilities. 6, ensure compliance with the 14 points of adequate education. And 7, adhere to applicable collective bargaining agreements and personnel requirements. After reviewing the CMDR findings, it was determined that implementation of Phase 2, which includes a potential consolidation of selected elementary schools in southern Guam, cannot be responsibly completed for school year 26-27. Additional time is needed to conduct stakeholder engagement, validate data, and complete comprehensive analysis. The task force will also continue the maximization study and research for other options. The task force will continue to collect and analyze data to support further evaluation of school consolidation options. Current findings indicate that additional study remains warranted based on the following factors. 1, as stated earlier by our chair, is continued declines in birth rates and projected student enrollment, school facility capacity relative to current and projected enrollment, potential operational efficiencies and cost savings through consolidation, and opportunities to redirect limited resources towards student services, academic programs, and facility improvements. So on June 16, 2026, the matter was presented during the Guam Education Board monthly meeting, and board members provided the following guidance. 1, no public schools will be consolidated for school year 26-27. 2, continue the right sizing study and further evaluate consolidation options. 3, complete and validate all supporting data and analysis. 4, conduct meetings with village mayors and other community leaders. 5, encourage parent organization and other stakeholders as part of the decision-making process. 6, present multiple options supported by data and research. 7, explore all feasible alternatives and their impacts on educational services. And 8, seek additional support from the Guam legislature and other partners to address educational and operational challenges. And the second question that you wanted answered was the reopening of our schools for this coming fiscal year, and I would like to ask Deputy Superintendent of Educational Services and Community Learning, Ms. Jackie Kitaguat, to make that presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Wampet. Good morning, honorable senators. Really very honored to be with you and enlighten the reopening plan for school year 26-27. The status as of June 17, 2026. The Guam Department of Education continues to advance preparations for the opening of school year 26-27. Readiness efforts have been ongoing since the conclusion of the regular school year, with schools balancing end-of-year activities, graduation ceremonies, summer programming, staffing actions, and school opening preparations. The last day of instruction for students was May 20, 2026, and the final graduation ceremony was concluded on June 6, 2026. Since that time, schools and district office have been focused on enrollment verification, staffing, scheduling, facilities preparation, and operational readiness activities. In addition, the district continues to operate its summer school program through July 5th, 2026, requiring schools to simultaneously support summer learning opportunities while preparing campuses for the opening for school year 26-27. The key readiness indicators include student enrollment. The district-wide enrollment dropped from 21,817 students on June 10 to 21,600 students on June 17. This represents a decrease of 217 students. Enrollment figures continue to fluctuate as schools process registrations, withdrawals, transfers, and student record updates. So this is an ongoing numbers that we are monitoring on a weekly basis. With faculty vacancies, the district identified a total of 203 faculty vacancies. To address these shortages, 44 fully certified retired teachers, 45 full-time limited term teachers, and 53 part-time limited term teachers were hired, resulting in 142 positions filled. Despite these efforts, the Guam Department of Education continues to face a shortage of 57 faculty positions. Breakdown of the vacancies are 108 for middle and high schools, 95 elementary schools, and 37 special programs. For school aides, we have 346 school aides federally funded, 259 locally funded, total of 605 total school aides. Again, because recruitment and hiring and the upcoming job fair that's going to happen tomorrow, this will be a moving part. The readiness progress, despite ongoing summer school operations, schools have continued to make progress in staffing and operational readiness. Recruitment and hiring efforts have resulted in a reduction in teacher vacancies, while school administrators continue work on class assignments, master schedules, student schedules, facility preparations, and school opening communications. The district's ability to reduce vacancies while simultaneously operating summer programs demonstrate continued commitment to ensuring schools are prepared for students and families when classes resume. The areas of focus under the readiness to ensure that readiness is maintained and fulfilled before the opening of the school year 26-27, the district will continue to focus and monitor the following: filling remaining faculty vacancies and critical support staff positions, finalizing teacher assignments, master schedules, and student schedules, completing facility readiness activities and addressing outstanding maintenance concerns, finalizing school handbook and communication materials, professional development plan and orientation schedule, supporting schools as summer programs conclude on July 5th and transitioning resources toward school opening activities. GDOE continues working with DPW bus operation on bus schedules. And finally, a walkthrough that is currently being conducted at every school to support school readiness to be completed on or before July 10. As of June 17, the Guam Department of Education has demonstrated measurable progress towards school opening readiness. 12 faculty vacancies were filled by 12 positions from J.P. Torres Success Academy program, a savings of $1 million, a job fair that will be held on June 26 at Atacao Elementary School from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. as a continuous effort to recruit personnel. With the regular school year concluding on May 20th, graduation activities ending on June 6th, and summer school continuing through July 5th, schools are transitioning from the close of school year 25-26 while preparing for the opening of school year 26-27. Administrators and staff are balancing ongoing instructional responsibilities with critical readiness activities, including staffing, student scheduling, facility preparation, transportation planning, and stakeholder communication. Continued focus on these areas will be essential to ensure a smooth and successful start of the new school year across the district. Thank you.
For facilities maintenance and school readiness, this will be reported by our acting Deputy Superintendent of Accountability and Assessment, who is our DFAS, Franklin Leon Guerrero.
Good morning, Senator Borja, honorable senators. Thank you for this opportunity to provide information. On the question of facilities maintenance and school readiness, facilities and maintenance has been actively conducting inspections, re-inspections, corrective maintenance, emergency repairs, school hardening initiatives, and DPSS compliance work throughout GDOE campuses since January of 2026 when we first arrived. Significant manpower and resources have been redirected to support the opening and occupancy readiness of FB Leon Guerrero Middle School and Simon Sanchez High School and Tejan High School shared campus. As a result, several district-wide projects have experienced scheduling impacts, while critical safety and occupancy requirements remain in high priority. They remain the highest priority. Current district priorities. Number one, we're out to achieve zero demerits, 100% passing on the DPSS compliance for FB Leon Guerrero Phase 1 inspection. We had an agreement with Public Health to inspect FB Leon Guerrero in phases, rather than try to inspect the school at the very end when all the refurbishment is completed. The potential for a oops here or oops there is increased. Public Health has agreed as we finish different wings, we can call that a phase, and they'll come out. And if there's any finding, they'll allow us to make the corrections while we're getting in line to do the new inspection. So this is a plan to help us get through all the inspection requirements, and hopefully by the time the last inspection is done, all of any potential demerits would have been corrected, and FB will open on time. The other district priorities: complete critical safety and occupancy requirements at Simon Sanchez Tejan Shared Campus, ongoing every day. Continue hardening efforts at Fenagajan Elementary School and MU Lujan Elementary School due to recurring break-ins and vandalism. We're actually tracking through the work order system all the different tasks that need to be done at the schools, and one of them being tracked is the break-ins. So we know which school has the highest rate of vandalism, and that's the schools that we've listed here. That's where our efforts are primarily concentrated to harden those schools, because that has the most incidences of break-ins. Everything about the facilities is hard-driven from data. Dr. Joey Heath has created a database tracking system on the work orders, so we know exactly what's going on with the facilities, where the hardening needs to be made, and where we can focus our efforts to get the best return on investment. Priorities: close outstanding permit-related deficiencies identified during school re-inspections. Complete corrective actions for schools with August and September 2026 compliance deadlines. We prioritize, of course, the schools that are coming up for the next inspections. We gather the workforce team together and we hit them hard. And as you'll see in the coming testimony, the results are showing in the grades that are being awarded. Another priority: continued demolition of the condemned temporary facilities. We have already saved $120,000 because we were able to purchase a dump truck and a backhoe, and we did estimates for these old temporary classrooms that are dilapidated and have become safety issues. In fact, we were addressed with the principal saying that this yellow police tape around some of these dilapidated classrooms, when do we get this space back? When do we get this safety hazard handled? And so we got quotes, and the lowest quote out of 3 quotes was $120,000 to demolish. So we used our dump truck and our backhoe, and we demolished that in 2 days, and we saved the department $120,000. We have since demolished 3 additional classrooms, Marshall, Sablon, and Agate, and that has saved us $360,000. So we're just under $500,000 in savings on that initiative. We are focusing on and completing the grease trap replacements required at many of the schools. The fact of the matter is, as of yesterday and tomorrow, we will be finishing the final 2 schools, Agania Heights Elementary and Southern High School, and we should have all the grease traps replaced. And I just want to take a note to tell you that when Dr. Wampat's initiative to join the Contractors Association allowed us to be eligible for free tuition at Trades Academy because of becoming a member. So some of our facilities and maintenance workers have signed up for classes in the Trades Academy. And one of the individuals in the classes gained increased knowledge and skills that he was able to devise the correct equipment to replace the grease trap. We didn't have to contract it out. It's, number one, it saved a lot of money. And number two, Guam EPA said, this is one of the best grease traps we've seen. Please follow that same process that you just did. So we built that skill and knowledge internally, and the facilities and maintenance workforce continues to increase in their skills. That's money in the bank. That's really helping out. So we want to go on with the corrective actions. So Finnegadgen Elementary. We have a checklist of things that we're working, especially on those 2 schools, so I'll just mention it briefly. Checklist of 7 items. Replacement of damaged door hardware and locking systems. This is Finnegadgen, completed. Classroom security upgrades, completed. Repair of vandalized windows and plexiglass, completed. Exterior lighting improvements, pending funding. This is the initiative that Dr. Wampat has for solar lights outside, perimeter lights, perimeter cameras. We want to continue our hardening of our schools to make it harder for the vandals to get in and do their vandalism. That's pending. Campus perimeter assessment and fencing improvements pending. That's all the initiative hardening the outside of the perimeter. Security hardening recommendation for vulnerable access points in progress. Reinspection, preparation, and corrective maintenance items completed. So the other school that has the major concern for the vandalism is Maria Yajoa. So here's where we are on those 7 checklist points. Repair of damaged classroom doors completed. Replacement of broken locks and hardwares completed. Security measures for the perimeter, hardening the perimeter in progress. Windows and plexiglass repairs completed. Lighting upgrades around vulnerable areas pending. Preventative hardening measures in progress. Reinspection, corrective maintenance completed. So in general, through the efforts district-wide, we're happy to report that 13 schools have since received the grade DPSS Health and Safety Inspection of an A, 3 schools have received a B, and 22 schools are pending inspections. So I'll briefly just read down the list. Attica Elementary received an A, 1 demerit. Ocean View Middle School received an A, 10 demerits. Agatha Johnson Middle School received an A, 10 demerits. Liguan Elementary School received an A, 0 demerits. Harry S. Truman received an A, 10 demerits. Maria Yajoa received a B, 14 demerits. Estumbo Middle School received an A, 6 demerits. Ordot Chalampago Elementary, an A, 10 demerits. Finnegadgen Elementary got an A, 3 demerits. Maritza Elementary got an A, 9 demerits. Juan M. Guerrero got a B, 13 demerits. And Alahan Elementary got an A, 4 demerits. George Washington had a B, 17 demerits. Talafofa Elementary got an A, 2 demerits. And just recently, the other day, we were informed that JFK and Okadu High Schools received an A. So that's the status of the permits. We have a re-inspection schedule for August 31st is Talafofa Elementary, August 31st is Marshall Sablan Elementary, DL Perez is September 30th, and Jose Rios is September 30th. So FVLG, checklist for items that need to be done for phase 1 inspection. Critical priority, install window screens and plexiglass, completed. Critical, install 2 water coolers, pending. Critical, fire suppression compliance, pending. Critical, bell system intercom installation, pending. Critical, IT network and wiring completion, pending. And when we say pending, work is underway, requisitions have been in place. It's working its way through the system. It's not like nobody's doing anything. I can't put completed because it's still in progress. Install restroom dividers, completed. Critical, install toilets and restrooms, completed. The main office required work, renovation and completion, renovation completion at the main office is completed. Water cooler installation is pending. G-Wing, critical, the nurses, complete nurses office is completed. Critical, complete counseling office is completed. High priority desk painting is completed. So moving on to a checklist for Simon Sancho Tejan High Shared Campus priority. Critical, clean damaged drainage systems and gutters is completed. Critical, replace non-functional toilets and flush valves, completed. Critical, resolve plumbing and water pressure issues, completed. If the water pressure pump in Tejan isn't working, you can't even wash your hands, much less flush a toilet. So that is completed. Critical, install adequate restroom and locker room lighting is pending. Arena locker rooms checklist. High priority, repair lighting, completed. High priority, repair floor tiles, completed. High priority, repair shower drainage, completed. High priority, repair toilet plumbing, completed. Campus infrastructure checklist. High priority, replace main office double wood entrance doors with sliding doors, completed. High priority, install 4 40-foot storage containers, DPHSS 17, completed. High priority, remove concrete Tejan guard shack, completed. That will increase the traffic flow in and out of Tejan from that traffic point. High priority, remove chain link fence at entrance, pending. High priority, repaint curbs and parking stalls, pending. High priority, clear heavy vegetation in parking areas, completed. High priority, upgrade Wi-Fi bandwidth and network capacity, is pending. We have contracts underway to do that. Demolition of condemned temporary buildings. FBLG, demolition was completed. That's where we saved $120,000. Marshall Sablan, 3 out of the 4 have been demolished, and we saved $360,000. Grease traps, we mentioned it earlier. These are the last 2 schools. At Agania Heights Elementary was done yesterday. Southern High is completed to be done before the end of the month. In Southern High case, it is not a grease trap for a cafeteria, it's a grease trap for home economics, where they do cooking lessons and things like that. There's grease traps involved. Baligaskas, so we're underway with that dump truck and backhoe that we talked about earlier for demolition. So we used to contract out these services for Baligaskas at the end of the year. We no longer have to contract it out. We're using our own equipment. So it's underway. Surveyed obsolete books and educational collateral equipment and materials are being staged and surveyed. Inventory control and accountability documentation, everything will be documented. Palletized and shrink wrapped, and distribution and transfer of the surveyed materials. We have to clean up the schools because we need the space for school utilization. So this kind of squirreling stuff here and squirreling stuff there, there's a big initiative to unsquirrel it and get it out of there. Continued prioritization of manpower procurement and contractor support will be required to achieve all scheduled compliance and readiness targets. Thank you.
On the subject matter of special education services, Dr. Risa, who is the CNI Deputy Director, then will report to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Wanpat. Good morning to all our senators who are present today. For Special Education Services report, for our current staffing and vacancies, positions, including psycho-academic evaluators. We need, for current vacancies, we need 3. IEP coordinators for elementary, 3 vacancies. IEP coordinators for preschool, 1 vacancy. Early intervention and preschool teachers, 2 vacancies. Data office, 2 vacancies. PC4 leads, 4 vacancies. Related services, including occupational therapies, 1 vacancy. Occupational therapist assistant, 2 vacancies. Physical therapist, 1 vacancy. PT assistant or tech, 1 vacancy. Audiologist, 1 vacancy. Bus driver, 3 vacancies. Social worker, 3 vacancies. Speech and language pathologist, 5 vacancies. And I would say adult support aides, we do have 223, and there's 156 additional requests that SPED is unable to fund. Due process cases, as of August 2025 to June 2026, there were 16. During the reporting period, due process cases primarily involved requests for special education services, service delivery concern, and student support accommodations. Common issues including requests for adult support, transportation services, and the provision of related services such as occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, and physical therapy. Resolutions focus on ensuring students receive the required support and services outlined in their educational plans. Corrective actions, including assigning adult support, providing transportation accommodation, delivering overdue related services with compensatory services as appropriate, procuring specialized equipment, and addressing assistive device repairs. Overall, the cases were resolved through the provision of appropriate educational supports, compensatory services, and necessary accommodation to ensure student access to required special education services. GDOE continues to face challenges in recruiting qualified service providers, particularly in the areas of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech-language pathology. To ensure continuity of services for students with IEP, GDOE currently relies on contracted providers to supplement its workforce. The request for proposals process has been completed, and the department is now evaluating submitted proposals. Upon completion of the evaluation process, contracts will be awarded to qualified vendors to provide the necessary related services. These efforts are intended to strengthen service delivery capacity and ensure that students receive the support and services outlined in their IEPs in a timely manner.
Dr. Rizzo would also continue with the presentation of the J.P. Torres Success Academy program.
Thank you, Superintendent Wanpat. The Guam Department of Education has initiated the closure of the J.P. Torres Success Academy Credit Recovery Program effective at the conclusion of school year 25-26 and ended at the consolidated grant cycle. The decisions affects only the credit recovery component of the program and does not impact other alternative education services operating under the J.P. Torres campus. The J.P. Torres Success Academy, under that credit recovery, served young adults ages 18 to 21 who were given 6 years to complete high school requirements. So take a note that Guam Department of Education serves pre-K, which is 4 years old, to 12th grade, which is up to 17 or 18 years old. This program was funded by local and federal grant. The closure applies exclusively to the credit recovery program. The following programs will continue providing educational and support services to eligible students in the Liheng Famaguon program and the Sanctuary Sagan na Home Loop program. As of June 2026, 80 students have graduated from JP Torres Success Academy, leaving a student who has chosen to complete her graduation requirement at GCC. The district continues to offer a variety of interventions and educational support programs to help at-risk students meet their academic needs and fulfill graduation requirements. Number one is the Escuelan Puengi, which is an after-school program and credit recovery program offered to all high schools. The second one is the Bridging Outlying Opportunities for Students, which is BOOST. This is before, during, and after-school program that helps students improve their grades and for credit recovery. The third one is the Summer School Program, which is a credit recovery program for students offered during the summer. And the Asmuzao Alternative Pathways provided students with pathways to graduate high school at no cost to the students. They are also offered those who are beyond 18 years old will be enrolled at Guam Community College Adult Basic Education Program. GED, they can enroll at GED or General Education Development Pathways for completion of their educational goals and receive diplomas equivalent to high school. And several schools have expressed that they will offer a project-based learning that will provide students with meaningful hands-on learning experiences and promote academic achievement, career readiness, and successful transition to post-secondary opportunities. So our plan and vision is we're now developing the early warning system in the Power School so that we could flag students who are lacking credits and having issues with their academic to respond to their academic needs. We will also implement the multi-tiered system of support so that we can really catch these students before they reach their 19 years old or before falling into the cracks, to make sure that they're given interventions and more credit recovery programs before they actually reach the certain age beyond 18 years old. The human resource have prioritized and successfully placed the personnel to various schools with vacancies, which is 10 teachers, a counselor, a librarian, and a computer operator. So they are now in different schools. That's the report I have for JP Torres. Thank you.
Number 6, which is the transition report. I mean, I think we've discussed this a couple of times before, and I stated then, is that I had 2 transition meetings with the former superintendent in November, and nothing of significance was conveyed. No documents were submitted. We did set up a transition team, 3 from the Department of Education, and they were to gather all the information that the deputies of the respective areas would like to get more information about the department, but nothing in terms of anything that was pending, something that maybe we need to look at closer. This was just primarily what was submitted, a description of all the different programs under all the different divisions. On the financial status, which I know you're going to be very interested in, and Senator Duenas, I know I sent you a letter based on your request, and what I've done is that I've brought in our auditor and the business office, our DFAS, and the accountants of the office to look at and track, where we are financially, and I'm going to ask our chief auditor, Mr. Franklin Cooper-Nurse, to address that.
Thank you, Dr. Wampet, and good morning, Senators. Again, generally, I don't speak to the management of the finances, but I was asked by our management team, as Dr. Wampet said, to assess the validity of the numbers and look closely so we can get a clear picture of GDOE's financial position. So just to start, I think one of the very first questions that are being asked in this presentation is GDOE's current cash position. As an auditor, I like to look at the reliable information. We were able to pull GDOE's financial statements directly reporting from its bank. So as of June 15, GDOE's cash in bank is reported at $82.1 million. This is a very significant and strong financial position from GDOE, and it's really something that is kind of new to the department, as in years past, we've always had challenges managing our limited budget and ending with operational deficits. So the past few years, we've seen a growing surplus and an increasing fund balance. Right now, cash in bank is reported at $82.1 million. I do have to say, and I'll trace that through how that balance accumulated through several lapses. I do have to say that that is a total cash position in bank as of today, and that some of that cash in bank is subject to restriction and commitments, a big portion of that. However, again, the cash in bank availability is reporting at $82.1 million. The breakdown of lapses per fiscal year, and this is how we get to that, because the 82 considers not only past surpluses, but the current operational cash that we're managing in 26. So in January 2026, GDOE issued its FY24 financial audit. GDOE ended the year with an operational surplus of $67 million and a carry-forward balance of $9.6 million, resulting in a cumulative surplus of $77 million. Our audit was late. That 24 audit was just issued in January. By the time that audit was issued, FY25 was already closed. So here we are in January 26, the auditors are reporting the operational surplus of $77 million. Right now, GDOE is still behind. This is the importance, and this is the reason why OPA is always pushing for these more timely completion of audits. Our FY25 audit is again lagging. Right now, I'm only speaking on unaudited financials, but that figures have been presented to EY, and if all stays the same, then we're looking at an unaudited financial statement showing an operational deficit of $3.3 million to bring the cumulative surplus down to $74 million. That's what carries into 26, and we're operating in 26. So if I can just summarize that real quickly, in 24, you had an operational surplus of $67 million with a prior year fund balance of 9.6, bringing that total to $77 million. In 25, the unaudited draft financials are showing a deficit of 3, so that carries approximately $74 million into the operational year. Now, the question is the status of the funds authorized and appropriated under Public Law 38-132. And that appropriation isn't a separate appropriation. It's an appropriation to relax fiscal controls on the funds that we just described, right, in total of surplus. So Public Law 38-132 should have made available approximately $74 million in accumulated prior year lapse balances. Prior to the enactment of Public Law 38-132, portions of these funds were subject to statutory restrictions established under Public Law 38-60. Following the enactment of Public Law 38-132, those restrictions were removed, allowing the department broader authority to utilize the funds for educational and operational purposes. However, there has been some obligations and expenditures prior to the close of the fiscal year by the past leadership team, and I can cover that. So expenditures made before the end of the fiscal year and during the past and current administration's transition. So a total of $6.4 million in total expenditures was charged against prior year appropriation accounts. Of that, about $2.2 million was expended under the previous leadership team, and about $4.2 million was expended from January to current under Dr. Judy Wampat. These expenditures were transacted during the new leadership team's appointment. However, almost the entirety of the expenditures were tied to encumbrances under the previous team. So in these instances, services had already been rendered and contracts had already expired prior to the appointment of the current management team, requiring corrective actions to avoid future loss due to penalties and legal risks. During WAMPAD's leadership, about $4,000 was obligated and expended against the prior year accounts. So trying to reconcile those statements regarding the availability of current funds and specifically the $26 million. So considering the FY25 fund balance of $74 million, expenditures already incurred against prior year appropriation accounts and encumbrance against those accounts, GDOE estimates unobligated lapsed funds are approximately about $60.7 million, which is inclusive of the $51 million ARP reimbursement to local funds. So, and again, tracing the unobligated lapse balance in fiscal year 2025, the unaudited figures are going to show a carry forward fund balance of 73.7, about $74 million. Looking into the current operational period of FY26, you have encumbrances of about 6.5 million and expenditures already recorded at 6.4 million. So right now, based on those lapse provisions, the availability of the 74, you're looking at about $61 million that are available. This is, as an auditor, I do want to say that there is a possibility of unrecorded obligations that could adversely affect the availability of these balances. And what we are learning with the new team is a lot of these are coming out and surfacing that there's an obligation that wasn't recorded, wasn't put into the system, and are going against those cash balances that we are identifying in the audit as lapses. I'll go straight into the status of the management audit. So the scope of review of the audit areas from PPRC, Public Law 37-44, enacted in November 2023, resulted in a statutory requirement for GDOE to conduct periodic management and curriculum audits. For fiscal year 24, the law requires that these audits are completed for the superintendent's review by May 31st, 2025, with the final report submitted to the GEB by June 2025. Subsequently, due to delays with contract execution, an extension was granted to this deadline for the vendor through September 30, 2026. The entire audit includes 4 phases: planning, coordination, the actual audit fieldwork, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. The scope of the audit covers governance, leadership, financial management, human resource and personnel, curriculum and instruction, technology, facilities and safety, stakeholder engagement, and other cross-cutting management functions. GDOE is currently moving into phases 3 and 4 to complete the fully executed audit contract. Right now, the preliminary findings or concerns identified to date was one of the questions proposed. The findings are no longer preliminary. This audit report was complete. The final report was completed and issued. The findings cover all sections listed in their scope of work. The overall assessment from the audit report is that while GDOE has made commendable progress in areas like accreditation, policy streamlining, and community engagement, it continues to face significant systemic challenges. These issues, which largely stem from insufficient accountability mechanisms, a lack of updated standing operating procedures, and limited local funding, hinder operational efficiency, contribute to a persistent climate of low trust, and ultimately affect the quality of education and support services for students and staff. Addressing these challenges will require a focused effort on implementing formal review schedules, establishing clear performance metrics, and resolving long-standing issues in key areas like procurement, facilities and maintenance, staffing, and instruction. So the expected completion date and reporting. The final report was already officially transmitted to the superintendent. That occurred on March 18, 2026, and an exit conference was held by the Pacific Policy Research Center on April 3rd, 2026. The final monitoring report will be completed. It's a collaborative effort with the team where they're going to sit with the respective deputies and the divisions and work on implementing the corrective action plans to address the audit findings. So how the audit findings will be used to improve operations, accountability, fiscal controls, and school services. Management and the respective divisions will continue to develop detailed corrective action plans to respond to audit findings. The PPRC team will then work with the representatives from GDOE leadership and the divisions on monitoring and assessing those corrective action plans to address the critical recommendations for improvement. And the last thing is GDOE will begin a series of strategic planning work sessions to review and update its current strategic plan. These sessions will incorporate key findings, recommendations, and lessons learned from the management audit to ensure that identified areas for improvement are addressed through measurable goals, priorities, and action steps. The updated strategic plan will serve as a roadmap for strengthening organizational effectiveness, improving accountability, enhancing its operational efficiency, and advancing student outcomes across the district.
And on the last area in your request is public communications. So the plans are, well, for communication, we will continue to submit monthly report to the Guam Education Board, continue to provide consistent information on major initiatives, decisions, and priorities, and daily activities through messaging such as school break-ins, early dismissal, water outages, etc. On the stakeholder engagement, we'll provide regular updates to parents, employees, mayors, legislators, and community partners through meetings, newsletters, public forums, and websites. We would also create opportunities for stakeholder feedback and participation through surveys, meetings, or conferences, and continue to work collaboratively with external partners, including community, educational institutions, and private sectors. On transparency and accountability, we will continue to provide the State of Education Annual Report accessible to the public and published in the website. We will submit the annual citizen-centric report to OPA, and we will provide school report card accessible in the website, and to publish annual strategic plan report also in the website. For public information and outreach, we will continue to utilize multiple communication channels, including the GDOE website, social media, and press releases to share timely and accurate information. So, Senators, this completes our report at the request of the Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Wampat and Dr. Guthertz and the leadership team. Before we get into questioning, I'd like to recognize Senator Duenas, who's joined us, and Senator Sabina Perez. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Wampat, a lot of, I have no doubt that you guys, your leadership team, we all share the same vision with the board in regards to academic achievement and ensuring that. I think the biggest, one of the biggest things that has changed, and I'm only going to share from why we're here today and has changed from the leadership, is that, a year ago, a lot of the calls and complaints was the frustration and the interference from the board. What has shifted, and again, this is, I know Dr. Guthertz, and I think for me it's sad because even like the feedback that we get from the board, speaking with board members, versus what the people in the department, from employee, teachers to even parents to administrators, it's very disconnected. And that's not our job. It's not our job as senators to try and pick through that. Only you guys can control that. We're just here to ask the questions, right? And sometimes I feel like a lot of the questions that we're asking are questions that can be handled at the departments. And that's just the way, at least for me, my approach has always been try to handle it at your level. But it just seems like a lot of the things that make it to us, not just to me, but even to my colleagues, are questions or concerns that really can be handled at the department's level. So I guess my question to start this off is, as the leadership team, what is your commitment, and how do you guys get input from your stakeholders, whether it be teachers, whether it be to school aides? Because at least the way what we're getting is we need help. We're just, a lot of it is we're just being told what to do with not really understanding what we're doing or why we're doing it. Or it's more of, this is what we're going to do and you guys are going to do it. Not in those words, but And you know, these employees are, you know, dedicated employees who carry it out and they do it. But at the same time, their ask is, we need help to understand what it is we can do to help, because all we're being told is to do and not necessarily understand what we're doing, and not also being given an opportunity to be able to be a part of the decision. So what is your response, or how can we address, I think this is the core problem of what's going on. This is just my opinion based on the concerns that have been raised from employees and stakeholders of the Department of Education. Dr. Wanpat, or anybody who would like to speak.
Yes, and thank you for that question. And I know that actually has been a perennial problem, not just for our administration. It's been happening for many years, even when I was a senator. A lot of people feel that if they're not being heard at the department or at any level, whether it's their school principals or any of the deputies and up to the superintendent and even the board, it never fails. A lot of our constituents would go to the senators and to the governors. I've received calls from senators and even at the governor's office, and I've never even heard about the problem until either one of you have brought it to my attention. Our protocol is that we want to start at the lowest level to resolve the problem then. Should then it not be resolved, so let's say that it's at the school level, the assistant principal would be the first in line to be able to address, you know, any issues at the schools with any of the staffers. Then it goes up to the principal if they're not happy with the decision of the assistant principal. After the principal, then it goes to, if it's a divisional issue, it can go to one of the administrators in the division, up to the deputy superintendents, and then to finally the superintendent. And beyond me, then of course it would have to go to the board. But there are many cases where it's only at the very first level, and beyond that, then it has reached you, it has reached the governor's office, even something as simple as allowing for administrative leave, where I would receive a phone call from either one of the branches. And those are normally an operational decision, but they figure that they can get some change or reversal of a decision being made at the lowest level. But we would love to actually take care of that at our level. What my deputies have done and have completed since they came in is visited all the schools. What they also do is that on a weekly basis, they have meetings with the administrators. They've have spoken to as many of the teachers as they can and parents. And I know coming in new is not going to be easy because they're not sure. They don't know what our management style is. They don't know whether, one, they can trust us. They don't know whether they feel, you know, comfortable talking to us. So it's natural for them to go elsewhere. But we're slowly starting to change that. We've only been on the job 6 months. And I think we've accomplished quite a bit in terms of changing attitudes, changing, you know, habits as well. I mean, just the other day, one senatorial candidate told me they ran into somebody who said, you know, I'm surviving. And she said, why are you surviving? I said, well, I was told I was in the autonomous agency to come to DOE because it's going to be easy. The job is going to be easy. And the question was, so why now you're surviving? Because it's not as easy as I thought. And, you know, and then whether, I mean, that's the kind of information that is out there. And I know we are holding everyone accountable because we have a big task set for us when we came in by the board. And one is, first of all and foremost, is to fix our financial house. So we need to understand what we have, what we don't have, and how are we going to be able to sustain our operations. And then the second, which was a very big issue for us, was special education. So we immediately, you know, jumped in to try to fix that. So, and sometimes people think that by doing this, we might be stepping on toes, making decisions that maybe, you know, they're not used to or want things to be continue as is. I understand that because change is very hard for people to, to do. So, but I encourage all of you and anyone out there listening is that, yes, if you have any concerns, please, yes, bring it to our attention. Start, like I said, at the lowest level possible before it blows up into something that then becomes harder to resolve.
Thank you. Dr. Guthers, real quick, because I want to talk about the transition. I know that, there have been a lot of, or not a lot, there's been some uncovering in regards to things that were done by the previous administration that now have rose to the top, and we'll talk about finances in a second. I'm sure Senator Duenas will get into that. But I was looking at the minutes of the emergency meeting that you guys called December 30 when Paul Wade was the acting superintendent. And at that time, you guys had appointed Dr. Wonpat as the acting superintendent. Fast forward to when Dr. Wonpat took, lead January 1st. I met with her. We talked about the transition. Was there a reason why you guys didn't keep on the previous team to ensure that there was a smooth transition in regards to all the different things that could have happened or that have happened or things that we've discovered? Because now, again, we're sitting here with some issues that are being pinned on the previous administration. Was there a reason why the board decided to just put, have the with no transition? And does the board take any responsibility for no transition, no smooth transition?
I remember distinctly as a member of the board then, not as chair, that the instructions from the board was for the then management team to please work closely with Dr. Wonpat as the interim superintendent and provide all the information that she had requested and that was needed in order to have a good changeover. The board was very specific about that. And
was there any oversight during that transition? Because this was December 30 when I looked at the meetings. They were instructed to resign December 31st.
We don't control the operational part of the department. We can advise and suggest certain things, but we look to our administrators when they're asked to share information and provide an update on all the pending actions that are needed or issues that our new superintendent designee and her transition team of administrators that she chose so that they will know what's happening. But what we have found out, despite that, little by little, we're learning new things that are shared with us about things that didn't happen, that should have happened previously.
So then who holds the bag? Who's accountable for ensuring?
I can just tell you that the outgoing administrators, I think, were not as open as they should have been with the new transition administrators. And I'm sure our deputies here could probably clarify some of the actions that they were not briefed on, that they should have been informed about.
Dr. Wonpat, when was the transition? When did the incoming team meet the outgoing team?
I know it was in December. Yes, it was December 29. December 29.
December 29.
Yes, but maybe to also kind of elaborate a little bit more, not necessarily knowing the discussion with the board, but at least in my conversations with HR when they were talking about effective dates for our personnel action, is that when December 31st, yes, was their last day. And Dr. Swanson had asked me about this, that, had told me that because his last day was the 31st, that he has instructed his deputies that their last day also is the 31st, because he appointed them as deputies, and therefore when his term ended, their term ended. After the 31st, as you know, January 1st was a holiday, January 2nd was a holiday, and then the first work day, regular work day, because it ran into the weekend, was January 5th. And at least that was my understanding from HR versus a decision by the board to be able then to appoint me as the acting superintendent on December 31st, because it immediately ran into a holiday, leaving the department basically with no one as, you know, the head of the department.
And the reason I ask this is because, again, I know Dr. Wampat, we met on the first week of January. We talked about the transition at that time. We met with your leadership team. Your commitment at that point was like, we're here to move the department forward. We're not here to point fingers. I mean, I'm all about holding people accountable where we need to, but at the same time, we're moving forward. Issues are coming up. And now we're left with, we don't necessarily know who to blame besides the previous administration, because they were the only ones who knew at the time. Of course, with the discussions with them, trying to help, and again, when I ask them questions, it's not about trying to pin it on who, it's trying to find answers to ensure that we know what we're doing when we come in here to ask questions. And so even now at this point, if there was no oversight from anybody in regards to ensuring that there was a smooth transition, but now we're pointing fingers, we don't know how to move from here, because my understanding at the beginning was we're ready, we're here to move forward, we're not going to point any fingers. We have issues, million-dollar problems today that we need to, obviously somebody needs to take accountability for. And so that's what I at least want to ask, because at least all the previous deputy superintendents have come and have reached us saying, hey, we're being pinned for things. We weren't given the opportunity to transition. We were directed to resign and end our term, and that the new leadership team was going to come in.
Senator,
go ahead.
Like you said, yes, is that, we want to avoid pointing fingers at anyone, but when there are certain facts that are tied to decisions, then even those we did not say per se identified the individual. And to give you an example, which actually our deputy was going to discuss when we were looking at encumbrances that were made, looking at other expenditures that we have to make, and especially after when a funding source has expired. And we had no choice when we came in, and not a single one of those items was related to any one of us that you would normally think that payments were not made to Tiny Eye, payments were not made to SecNet, payments was not made to Acum, Actum, payments were not made to construction companies and so forth. And then when you stop and consider these are federally funded programs that normally we would like, in our case now, is to make sure that we use our federal funds and we expend those federal funds, because if we don't, then now we're going to be obligated to use local funds. And that's what we want to avoid. But did we point any fingers? No. These are programs that we wanted to make sure continues so that our children will get the services that they need.
But to be fair, you guys have come before the legislature at least 3 or 4 times since you've taken the helm at the Department of Education, and at least attempted to present some kind of thorough understanding of your financial position and your issues at the Department of Education. Is that correct?
Yes, and we were also requested
so what,
by the
I know,
board.
aside from Dr. or Mr. Cooperners getting involved, how can we be confident moving forward, aside from bringing in the auditor to look at your finances, to ensure that when you come before the legislature to explain your finances or to ask the legislature for help, that we're getting a true picture? Because again, you've been here 3 or 4 times over the last 6 months. A lot of these things with the lapses now just popped up right in the last couple weeks since we passed NASA. So the question is, moving forward, how confident are we? Are you going to get the assistance of the auditor to come in every time before to ensure that you're giving the correct information so that the legislature can make decisions to support the department? That's my only question.
So I'd like to address some of that. We've come before you multiple times, and one of those occurrences, I mentioned this phrase, we're on a journey of discovery, because when invoices started popping out of the woodwork, in the case of Tiny Eye, hundreds of thousands of dollars of invoices were squirreled away, hidden. We actually had to go to the vendor and ask the vendor for copies of those invoices because they were buried, put in desks, lost. So was it intentional? Nothing was intentional. We have, I wanted to mention something, a couple of things here. You started out by saying information has gotten to the legislature to you that I tried to write it down. Many vendors have not been paid and accruing interest. I'd like to address that because we had the Educational Finance Oversight Committee meeting last Thursday, and 2 or 3 of the members of that committee commended GDOE for how well they are managing their accounts payable. They commended GDOE by saying, never before have we seen so many of the vendors paid on time. Never. Congratulations. So that flies opposite of the image that you started out with. And the fact of the matter is we have been paying attention to the accounts payable. We have been paying people on time, if not early. But there are a few exceptions to that, and that's the exceptions rather than the rule. Let's take, for example, autism community. Who doesn't want to pay autism community? That's 90 days overdue. I can't pay it myself. Part of the reason is sitting right next to me. That's a federal funds thing. Autism community comes through special ed. What's happened here is the prior management team went to lunch at Capitol Kitchen. The prior management team went to lunch at Mescala. They wrote it on the invoices, lunch at Mescala, this and this and this, pay it. We cannot pay that. Lunch meals for federal money can only be paid if the stakeholders are brought in, and there's rules, there's regulations, there's strings attached. We cannot pay with federal money for people to have personal lunches, okay? So those invoices are stopped. We can't pay. Well, we could pay, but it would have to be out of local funds. We should go to those individuals on that management team and say, can you please pay this $14,800 that you've decided to have meals, and we can't pay. Federal funds can't pay. Tiny Eye, hundreds of thousands of dollars of invoices were not paid. They actually tried to hide it. They actually tried to get the vendor to change the invoices to make it seem that all the prior year's services that were provided, change the invoices to it just happened today from years ago. That's falsification of government documents. We can't do that. So we're going to have to, this management team has committed to paying for the services that were done. We lost those federal funds. Now we have to pay local. So I just wanted to say a couple of things. We are taking serious attention to the accounts payable. As far as the reliability, the financial information that's coming to you, I'm 100% behind that. The challenges that we inherited, and I'm not making excuses, but there were many and mighty. But what we're doing now, and it's underway, is the audit. That was a major thing that our internal auditor said, hey, we're working with old audited financial data. So we, the Financial Affairs, is committed to being the first in line in the Guam agencies for auditing to have our books closed on time. That hasn't happened ever since. It's going to happen this year. We're closing our books on time, which allows for the EY auditors to come in and start their audit, get it issued on time so we can make informed decisions on the finances of this organization. We're not hiding anything. We're not doing any smoke and mirrors. We are doing everything that we can possibly do. We are, in the financial affairs area, we are adjusting our IT interfaces so that when the new federal grant money comes out right now, management teams in the past through their, I'm going to say, less than optimal management of the IT system, restricted these people when they got their GDOE grant managers got their new funds. They couldn't spend them for 4 months. 4 months out of 12. That's a significant delay. That's changing. Now we're going to get them to open up within a week of those grant monies coming, not 4 months, 1 week. So these changes are underway. This grant cycle, this closing of the books, they were for some reason they were not reconciling the books monthly, and so then at the end of the year they had to reconcile 12 months. The more you wait, the more convoluted, the more rabbit trails you have to go. We are reconciling monthly. Does anybody see the results of that? Not yet. You will when we close the books. That helps us close the books on time. So at the end of the year, we only have to reconcile 1 month, not 12 months. That's underway right now. So there are things financially underway to get our financial house in order, more proper, more responsive, definitely detailed. So I'm telling you that this Juan Pat, the board and the management team are committed to timely, accurate financial reporting. Thank you.
Last question. What are some, what current vendors do we owe? Or what are some past due vendors and amounts?
Okay, there is a vendor, there is a vendor who is strongly opinionated. He owes money. He wants us to pay him money. The problem with this vendor, I would love to pay money if it's the right thing to pay the money. But when somebody does work outside the scope of a contract, and that contract then terminates, it's over, it's lived its life, and the work continued, and now they come to you and say, I need millions of dollars from you. We have to hesitate. Wait a minute, that contract is over. The work that you did is beyond the scope of that contract. You want millions, and you know what? If you don't pay me millions, I'm going to charge you late fees. If you don't pay me millions, I'm going to take you personally to court and sue you personally. Well, we're not paying. We have legal opinion to hold. How do you pay for a contract that has violated the procurement process, hasn't got the right paperwork, is beyond the life of the contract, and was work outside of the scope? That's the company that continues to pay me yesterday, or I'm going to sue you. Pay me or I'll put more interest. So we're not buckling into arm-twisting tactics. We've sought legal help. What's the way forward? And we're putting processes in place that this never happens again. But that's not solving the vocal person who's coming at us almost daily. So if you want the name, I can give the name. It's a construction contractor, and we have to wait for two things. We need the legal opinions. We need to make sure it's done properly, and we need to get the funding, because this was all unfunded, and we're talking multiple millions of dollars. Any question?
What's the amount? I mean, if you want to say the contractor, you can say contractor.
Right now, if it was a magical globe and everything was righteous, we're talking 20 to 25 million. And the reason I say that is because invoices pop out here, there. Oh, we forgot to mention that we did this for you.
And who's the contractor?
Cortec.
Is there anything for Northern? Because that's another
There is
contractor
something outstanding for Northern. Here's another case where Northern went beyond the scope of the contract. And scope is not so much this, it was a timing of the contract. With the strategic pause that happened under President Trump, and everybody was told to stop because they weren't sure if the funding would continue, the ARP funding. When they started back up, they had remobilization, demobilization costs. They had extended timelines. And so they didn't invoice because the work hadn't been done, but the ARP grant expired, and that's ARP grant money. So we're sitting on a $1.2 million invoice from Northern Construction. And there's more, because there's retention that's due, but hasn't been invoiced yet. So, and yet we're beyond ARP. So this will be millions of dollars in the FPLG reconstruction. Any other question?
Well, we'll wait. There'll be public comment towards the end. And now we'll go ahead and open up the panel for questions from my colleagues. So go ahead and start with Senator Kumatato. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the panel for being with us this morning. And I want to begin first by saying that I appreciate the context at the very beginning of this hearing, talking about this transition. It's been 6 months. It's time to move forward. And so I just want to start with that. Transitions, all that stuff, we got to move forward. So let me ask about the school closures for just a second. And I appreciate the update at the very beginning of your presentation, Superintendent. And so I just want to just jump right in. From a policy point of view, for the record, what specific data collection and community engagement milestones must be completed before any closure proposal can be returned to the board? And what is that timeline?
The timeline will be in our year, because we're going to use this school year to continue then to collect more data aside from what was collected by the previous task force, because they looked at, they went to public health, looked at birth rates. They also went and looked at school facilities, what capacity those school facilities are at the present, whether they're going to look at concrete facilities that are suitable and can continue to be used. They took out other facilities that are temporary, others that are like modular type buildings, and primarily to make sure that they do have now the capacity should there be a consolidation. They looked at projected enrollment, they looked at current enrollment, they looked at costs, utility costs, they looked at grounds maintenance costs, custodial costs, and all the other contractual costs to determine whether there are going to be any savings. They looked at the 14 points, the adequate education. They looked at the CBAs, which is the collective bargaining agreements that we have, and the requirement of teachers and other professionals and staff, because some schools will have more, others will have less. And when you consolidate and you look at the numbers, then you might have sufficient staff on board, because there are numbers that are in the contract. Like, for example, if you have a school that's under 400, you would get a librarian, but not a library tech. If it's over by 1, then you get a library tech, and that's, in the contract. And so when you consolidate and those schools, then the numbers go up, then I don't need to hire an additional, staff, again, based on the CBAs. But so when that task force started this whole conversation, they actually went out and met with the mayors. They met with some parents. They went out and staged several town hall meetings. And they presented not just phase 1, which was the 2 schools that eventually were closed, but they also discussed the potential closure of phase 2, which would be the southern schools. Phase 3 will be central, and phase 4 will be northern. So they looked at the entire school district, but they were advised by the superintendent to do them one phase at a time. So second phase was this year. When we came in, it was brought up that all this work had been done. So we started the conversation. We didn't take it further because we had not gotten the go from the board. So we were just looking at the schools, visiting the schools, talking to the principals. Yes, some of them said, is it possible for us to go ahead and say that there is a possibility? And sure enough, we said yes, and it was fine. One particular member had spoken to a mayor to look at different options. So the conversations were happening, but we're going to do something more extensive now as required and stated by, the board. So,
if I can intervene, so is there a policy that actually outlines the data collection for this process? Okay, so then it goes back to when maybe Dr. Guthrie you can share. So if there's no policy, are you guys pondering one? And secondly, what kind of timeline are we talking here? If you're looking at a school closure, and I appreciate the fact that the superintendent said 1 year. So, but if there's no policy, you can basically dust this off, look at this. It could be years before we even consider such a thing.
After that meeting, yes, I met with the team, and this is what we want to do, is that we are going to set up a team then actually to look and come up with policies. What will be the conditions for the department to consider should there be consolidation, closure, or what have you. So we want to set that policy up as well and to present to the board.
Dr. Guthrie, do you have any insight? You can press the button too while you're at it. There you go.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Senator. It's very clear from the board that first we weren't going to entertain any action to close any school at this time. And even looking to the future, it would not happen without complete justification. And that was our policy for that meeting, that we voted not to proceed. We voted and we passed a motion, a long motion, for the superintendent to adhere to, which included gathering certain kinds of information that the board would require to consider such an option. And I think the superintendent has just stated that her plan now going forward is to form a group to follow that motion that was voted on by the board. And in a year, they'll report back to us and we'll look at it again. Our hope, though, I think one of the most important part of the motion that we passed was we want alternatives. And we suggested very specific alternatives to help guide the superintendent and her team. Because this may happen in other locations, not just in the South, but we're seeing the trend in other schools. We're seeing less students, and we want to have an option that can work island-wide, such as multi-use facilities, compatible with a school campus. In talking to some of the mayors, I know that there's a lot of nonprofit organizations in the villages that do different things. And some of them would be very compatible to have space on a school campus.
And Dr. Guthrie, I understand that. And I think that it might want to start with perhaps DOE Central being put back into our schools that are underutilized. Hold on, let me just finish my talk. I have another question, but we talk about nonprofits. We need to start in the system itself.
Of course.
And perhaps that might be a good first step.
Senator, if I may, my first week on the board, a little over a year and a half ago, was I made a motion to relocate DOE from TGen, the Central Administrative Offices, to school space. I made that motion.
Oh, no, and I agree with you. And
it was actually, I think, very timely because we had the schools in Tamuning that were going to be underutilized or not used. And those would have sufficed to meet our needs. I didn't get very far, though. But
no, and I understand that. And I think that we have to appreciate the plan side of it.
Yeah.
If there isn't one, 1 year from now, thank you for the voice vote, but it probably for most people will say, what is the actual policy that outlines school closures?
Well, the policy, Senator, the policy will be developed based on the input from Dr. Wampat. By the way, may I make one comment also? I wanted to comment earlier on a question that...
Oh, hold on, because I don't have very much time. Can you hold on to that question?
Okay,
If you could,
go first.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just stick with that. But let's talk about the reopening, if you can. So what is GDOE's parent communication plan for the reopening, and by what date can parents anticipate receiving definitive information about their child's school assignment, bus route, first day logistics? I appreciate the planning side we heard this morning, but when are you going to tell parents about what's happening for the first day of school? Or when can they know?
Thank you, Senator. I'm monitoring right now the school readiness report weekly, so I'm hoping to really have a better compilation of just where everyone is at right now. When I say that, I'm very cautious with timeline. I'd like to say, hopefully, by July 22nd, with everything that I am putting together. It could be earlier than that.
Yeah, and I hope so, because I think parents need to plan before July 22nd.
Yes.
And I thank you for that. I only have a few more questions, Mr. Chair. I wanted to, if I can, to the other end of the table. We during the Committee on Finance and Government Operations in that April 28th, 2026 public hearing, the committee found that GDOE faces substantial contractual obligations, including, I think we mentioned it today if we didn't, but $20 to $30 million in unpaid ARP-related invoices, late fees, and the like, and I appreciate some of the insight. But for the benefit of the committee and those that are following today's public hearing, were Guam DOE ARPA resources available to be used for the estimated $20 to $30 million in outstanding invoices? And because now local dollars are being eyed for this, according to the Finance Committee's findings, to cover contractual obligations that would have otherwise been covered by federal funds, can you confirm what programs or personnel contracts or other costs have or will be impacted by no longer having local funds available for these particular priorities?
I mean, quite honestly, everything's impacted, because these oversights, I mean, I'm trying to be generous to what I'm talking about here. They're amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, depending on which area you want to focus at. And unfortunately, quite honestly, the biggest loser in this was the students, the kids. These were special needs children that required services by law that we provide. And I really have to take my hat off to one of the companies that was providing these services, because in the forensic analysis I had to go through to reconstruct what happened, for over 2 years they had been sending emails, you need to pay us. We are paying our staff. You need to pay the invoices so that we can recover that money. How they held on for 2 years of non-payment is unbelievable. And they said, we don't want to disrupt the service to the kids. So it's really commendable, but it came to a point where they said, we can no longer carry you. And it's unfortunate at that time, after multiple warnings, they did turn off the services. And then our GDOE representative added salt to the wound by going in front of the newspaper and saying, this is that vendor's fault because they don't have enough counselors to provide this service. That's an unbelievable untruth. It's their fault that they don't have enough counselors. They carried GDOE and the special needs kids on Guam for 2 years without payment. And for them to be slapped in the face to say they're at fault, I saw an email that they said, we take offense to that. So we damaged them. We, the GDOE management team, prior management team, damaged them. I don't see anybody stepping forward publicly to undamage them. This is Tiny Eye. And we owe them that. We owe them that. And we need to pay them. And part of the priority spending here now, out of local funds, is $500,000 has been put on the spend plan to make Tiny Eye whole. There's no interest, no late penalties, no threats to take us to court. They're waiting patiently for what is due them. And so that's on the spend plan.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Chair, I have one last question because I know I'm in front of a lot of time here. But I want to point out that during your June 16th meeting, and he's in the room, and I'm not asking for him to defend it, but your board member, Dr. Ron McNinch, he raised at that meeting of an allegation reported in media that senators here needed to be paid to advance certain actions related to Simon Sanchez High School. The board directed GDOE to forward this to the Guam Ethics Commission. Has that referral been made? And separately, does GDOE have any documentation related to that allegation and should be made available to this committee?
No, we've not sent it to anyone. I've not seen it. We tried to find it, so I don't. Maybe Dr. McNinch, if he's still here, can share where he saw it or heard it or who sent it to him. But
yeah, my simple question is, has it been referred?
I haven't seen it, and I've not made any referrals.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, my last question, Mr. Chair, is this, is that the GDOE relationship with this legislature has been marked by what I would probably characterize as reactive rather than proactive disclosure. Lapsed funds surfaced through the budget hearing process, outstanding obligations were not voluntarily reported, and the FEMA losses that were disclosed on June 16th in a hearing were not in any prior communication to the committee. What specific structural changes in GDOE's legislative reporting will your administration, Superintendent, implement so that the Education Committee of the Guam Legislature learns about fiscal problems through transparent reporting rather than through public hearings?
Well, I can tell you that management team, Superintendent Juan Pat, the board, it's all about transparency and reporting. Unfortunately, many of the items that you're referring to right now were stuff we didn't know about. This was stuff that came out of the woodwork, came out of the bushes. We were on I said to you earlier, we were on a journey of discovery. You don't know what you don't know. And then it's not in our being to come running to you and saying, so-and-so's name did this, so-and-so's name did that. What we tried to do is we have to address the problem. And we had spend plans, and we had some prior year lapses. There were some restrictions on the lapses. And, you know, quite honestly, and I will tell you that when we talked about the prior year lapses, the reasons why the legislature felt we were a little bit blindsided about some of the prior year lapses being already committed and stuff, that's because I was blindsided. Now, how can the DFAS be blindsided? Because when you're faced with audit reports and this is how much cash you have, and I see the cash management reports, and I see how much cash we have, everybody's looking at cash. Nobody was paying attention to prior year obligations in prior years that had to come due and payable. So that's why that kind of did a little boomerang on us. We didn't realize that that had happened. All of the cash money reports were cash in the bank, so that's what we were dealing with. But now that we've done a forensic analysis of all that money, we see there's this restricted fund, IDC, JROTC's restricted monies. They are in that pot of money, but you just can't freely spend it because there are some restrictions, sub-restrictions, if you will. So all that has come out forensically because we needed to do that because of where we were. We're on a mission of discovery. We feel that we know now where we are. And that moving forward, we're not going to get blindsided, so to speak. We're going to be fully on, and we will report. We have no hidden agenda. We are what we are, and what we're trying to do is improve the educational environments for the kids, all of that. And it's well underway. If you talk to the principals, many of the principals, they will tell you that the facilities and maintenance is, wow, thumbs up. That didn't happen by accident. We've been focusing on that. Why? We're putting air conditioners in the bathrooms. Why? We want to keep the schools open, number one. Number two, public health says if it's not a certain temperature and humidity reading any time of the day, at 8 o'clock we can pass that. But at 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, We cannot pass that. We get demerits. We can't afford the demerits. So we're putting air conditioners in the bathrooms because we don't control the time of day the inspector comes to do the temperature humidity reading. So we are doing all that has to be done to give the facilities and the educational opportunities these kids deserve. Thank you.
All right, we'll be holding you all to that moving forward. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Senator Gumbatata. Senator Snoggassine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank you, Superintendent and the panel and the chairwoman, Senator Guthers. I'm just happy that you announced you're not looking at closing any southern schools, because I never supported closing any school to begin with. I didn't support it back then when I was on the board, when they closed FQ Sanchez, and the excuse they made was not something that could be substantiated, but the board then decided on their own to do it. But I'm happy that you're not looking at closing any southern schools, and you're going to do a study, a very comprehensive study, and that I appreciate. I'd like to move to Ms. Jackie Kitawa on page 4 on this report. Jackie, the one I got. It says school aids, fairly funded and local funded. Does that mean the bodies are there, or it's funded but there's nobody in it?
So under school aids, the federally funded, these are the ones supported under, meaning federal dollars.
There's a warm body. That's what I'm asking. Is there a warm body? You said, it says 346 school aids federally funded. Does that mean warm bodies?
Yes.
Okay. Then let me move to the next one. Frank, Mr. Longuero, you've identified page 5, the Southern High School, Simon Sanchez and Teaching Shared Campus. Whatever happened to the availability of FEMA funding a temporary campus for Simon Sanchez? Was that ever reconsidered or attempted to be considered or looked at before you start merging two schools together? It's in your report. You're the one that reported it out. So I just wanted to ask you directly, so that maybe you have an answer or not.
Are you talking about funding that was made available for Simon Sanchez rebuild? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the temporary campus.
Oh, the shared campus at Tejan.
No.
Temporary. Oh, the temporary.
The temporary that FEMA offered to
right, the classrooms, the
right,
20 classrooms. That's on track.
That's on track, but you're still going to put Simon Sanchez up at Tejan?
Well, because there's been delays.
I need clarification. Are you talking about the 20 classrooms that are going to be built by FEMA?
I'm talking about back when they had the typhoon, right? Mm-hmm. And they closed Simon Sanchez. FEMA offered to fund a temporary compound for the Simon Sanchez school students. Back then, the superintendent, prior superintendent, wanted to go after Tumon. When I was biggest pusher saying, get it back up at Anjigu. And then all of a sudden, nothing happened. Then the burden was all put on JFK. So I'm asking the question, since it's written on this report, Simon Sanchez and Tejan Shared Campus, is there any consideration to put the temporary compound at Jigu? I'm from Jigu, so I have an issue with that, a major issue with that one.
So currently, a deposit was made of about $8 million by FEMA to proceed in building a temporary campus of 20 classrooms.
For Simon Sanchez? For
Simon Sanchez and FB. Because what had happened was that I had informed the superintendent at that time wanted like a double-decker, which was going to be difficult to build on the FB campus. So he decided then to make it just one level of 20 classrooms, but needed a space for it. So he moved from the FB parking lot to across the street, which is the Guam Housing Corporation property.
I'm familiar with the area,
so there will be 20 there, and it has been awarded, and they're currently, starting to do work at building the 20 classrooms. Because 20 is insufficient, the offer was to use the housing the 24 units that are currently all vacant now and are to be repaired. Renovations will be done, but the governor will find the funding source for that. FEMA said that they cannot or will not fund the retrofitting those units for the school to use. That will bring their numbers up then to 44 classrooms that they can use. In addition, FB then is proceeding to complete its entire campus, but they're doing it in phases. And by doing so, like the first phase, which will be inspected, I'm not sure how many classrooms there are, but those classrooms plus the 20 and the 24 then will allow for FB then to go full time. When the rest of FB is completed, then Simon Sanchez will move back to GDOE, and both schools, similar to what we're doing right now of having Simon Sanchez and Tijan side by side in one campus, that's exactly what's going to happen next school year, when Simon Sanchez then will move there and they would coexist and share the campus with FB.
So what's the timeline for FB?
According with the last time.
It sure sounds like a slow boat to China.
Well, you're right. There were some governmental obstacles.
Unfortunately, FB, when it was before our time and not under us, I know you're tired of hearing that, but the planners, whoever they were, for FB renovation, failed to put in a fire alarm suppression system, failed to plan for an announcement system, failed to plan for the ITs. So unfortunately for FB, even if the construction work was done yesterday, they did not plan for these requirements that had to be put in. So we're doing that now. So when will they be done? They will 2 months from now, 3 months from now, not when the school opens, but not too long after that is the hope. So we are working aggressively towards that, sir, but unfortunately the planners, for whatever reason, didn't plan for cafeteria suppression equipment for the stoves and stuff. It just wasn't planned for the bell system. So now we're having to plan for it and execute it, and the procurement lag takes time to do it properly, but we're in the middle of that. It's all underway.
Okay, you have that listed on page 9, Frank, but you got it as pending. Can you next time put percentage? You have installed 2 water coolers, really?
Yes.
Pending? 2
yes.
water coolers?
Yes.
Drop it down. That's, por favor. It is not that, I mean, I'm looking at my colleagues here and we're like, and you know that, Frank.
Yes.
You could do it yourself.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, put a percentage, maybe say,
yes.
you got the cooler,
yes.
you're waiting for the attachment of the
yes.
pipes. Keep it simple.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Yes,
and that's throughout your whole report, wherever you identify pending. That's what I'm concerned about. I need percentage to reflect it. And
yes, sir.
I'm very happy that, like I said earlier, that the superintendent and the board had agreed not to consider any southern school, because I'm looking at all the inspections. All the southern schools are good to go, except for pending Tarapopo and Marsa. But I'm going to bet they're going to pass. So, it's just amazing. I'm trying to get by real quick. I only got about 6 minutes left, but pretty much most of the report that says pending, put a percentage, please. Give the information.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, you got demolition of condemned property. You save 120, 360. So that means you got 480,000 available to use somewhere else that the auditor will greenlight. You notice how I throw it over at the other Frank.
There's never any shortage of a need for facilities, fixing, upgrading, roofing, leaking roofs. I just want to say, by the way, that we've come across some new opportunities to patch, like in Southern's case, the Butler design on all the roofs. When we first came in, when this management team came